I always say Japan is a really good place to be an individual investor, so a small investor, someone who's investing their own money for themselves as an amateur. But what are the best investments here? Well, I've got 5 for you today, and I've also got 5 things that I don't think are good investments. Let's talk about it. So obviously here at Retire Japan, the whole purpose of the channel and the community is to help people learn how to sort out their personal finances, and a big part of that is learning how to invest, what to put your money into so that your money's growing and it's helping you along in your journey towards financial kind of security, financial stability, possibly financial independence, and a healthy, safe retirement. Now, the first option to invest here in Japan, by far the best in my opinion, is to invest in the stock market or in similar kind of investments. So this is going through a broker, buying stocks or mutual funds or ETFs, and that kind of investment. And the reason I think it's so good is because it's actually pretty easy to open an account. It's very easy to start investing. You can invest in a mutual fund in Japan for as little as 100 yen. So you can start investing if you have one 100 yen coin. And the tax treatment is pretty favorable. So you now have the new NISA account. You can put in up to 3.6 million yen a year, up to 18 million yen in total. And that is tax-free forever, basically. So you can invest, you can see your investments grow and compound over decades. You can end up with a quite significant amount of money. And then when you sell it so that you can live on it later on, you don't have to pay any tax. It's not taxable because it was all compounding inside a NISA account. And that is incredibly powerful. And if you have more money to invest over and above the NISA limits, then you're only going to be paying capital gains tax. And capital gains tax in Japan is a flat tax. It's 20.315%, and it doesn't scale with income, it doesn't scale with the amount you have invested, it's always 20%. So regardless of how much money you end up making from your investments, you're only going to pay that flat fee in the end. And that for me is why investing in the stock market or similar is by far the easiest way to invest and the best way to invest in Japan. So I recommend that pretty much everyone does that first. Now, number 2 would be investing in real estate. And this is not such a slam dunk, I don't think. So investing in real estate in Japan, it's a bit different from other countries because of how real estate behaves. So buildings depreciate. You're not necessarily going to have rents going up in the same way as they might do in other countries. So it's not quite as attractive as it might be somewhere like the US. But there are 2 really powerful things you can do with real estate. And the first one is that you can use leverage. So assuming that your finances are okay, you can borrow money from the bank to buy a property, put in a little bit of your own money, and that leverage can really help make that investment more effective. Now, leverage is also dangerous, so you definitely want to be careful with this, but for some people that's going to work. The other thing that you can do with real estate is that because the buildings depreciate, you can actually use that depreciation and use it to offset your income tax in Japan. So as your building depreciates, that's going to be a loss on paper, and you can use that loss to reduce your taxable income and reduce the amount of taxes you pay. And that's a very popular strategy for people with higher incomes in Japan. So I would say if you're already investing in the stock market, if you're happy with how that's going, if you want to diversify, if maybe you're paying a little bit too much income tax, then real estate investing might be something that is interesting for you. And I'm going to link to a video in the description that goes into Japanese real estate investing in a little bit more detail. Now, the third thing that I think is a really good investment in Japan is to invest in yourself, to invest in your skills, your knowledge, your training, your qualifications, and your tools so that you can work more, you can provide more value, and you can earn a higher income. For a lot of people, that's going to be working on their Japanese. Having Japanese language skills is going to be extremely helpful and in some cases essential. So if you want to get those better jobs, language ability could well be the differentiating factor that helps you get that job, that helps you advance your career. You can learn programming, like what one of our early guests on Retire Japan TV. I'll link that episode in the description as well. But basically, any kind of money and time that you invest in yourself is likely to give you a really good payoff over the course of your career. Now, the fourth thing that can be a really good investment is to start a business. So the happiest people I know in Japan generally tend to work for themselves. They tend to be self-employed or have a small business. And the reason that is so nice is because you get to enjoy all the positive aspects of Japan, and you get to avoid some of the negative aspects, which is the kind of the working culture, the way certain companies work, and the kind of social obligations. And by being a entrepreneur, a self-employed person, you can basically decide your own working conditions. You can decide how much engagement you want to have with society, and that is really, really attractive for a lot of people. Japanese tax system, when it comes to self-employed people, is pretty user-friendly, I think. You can expense a lot of stuff. It's generally fairly nice to be a self-employed person in Japan. And the last thing I think is a worthwhile investment is to invest in your health and your well-being. So I'm really feeling this now. I'm approaching 50. And I'm really running into kind of physical limitations, physical problems that I could have avoided if I'd been more careful in my 20s and 30s. And so if you're in that situation, really putting a little bit of effort into staying healthy, whether it's in terms of exercise, it's in terms of eating, it's in terms of sleeping properly, it's in terms of taking care of your relationships, making sure that you have friends and people around you that you can rely on, and managing your stress, that's really going to pay a huge dividend in the future. There's a quote that I'm not sure where it came from, but I really like it, and it goes, so a healthy man wants 100 things, but a sick man only wants one. And I've really felt that. So if you're ill, if you've had an injury, the only thing you want is to be well again. By focusing on our health, we can actually avoid those problems in the future, hopefully. So really recommend doing that. That's my fifth recommendation. So those are the 5 main things I would recommend investing in Japan. What do you think? Have I missed anything important? Could you leave that in the comments? And now I'm going to talk about the 5 things that I wouldn't bother investing in Japan. And number 1 is cryptocurrency. So I'm a bit of a skeptic about cryptocurrency. I don't really see why it should have any value. I've been wrong about that for a very long time. But the other reason why I wouldn't bother investing in cryptocurrency in Japan is because it's taxed quite unfavorably. So cryptocurrency gains are taxed as miscellaneous income in Japan. So unlike stocks, which pay capital gains, so you'd pay this flat 20.315% tax rate, cryptocurrency gains are taxed as income. So they scale with income and they're added to your income to figure out your tax rate. So if you have a big cryptocurrency gain and you sell it, you could end up with an enormous tax bill in Japan. It's also more difficult to declare your investments. So if you're investing in the stock market through a broker, the broker can handle all your tax paperwork. That is not the case for cryptocurrency. You'd have to keep track of things, and especially people who are trading more regularly, they might have, hundreds or thousands of transactions to report to the tax office, which is not something that I want to do. Number 2 seems like a really popular option in Japan, and that's trading Forex, so foreign exchange. So you're kind of speculating on currency movements. I don't know why it's so popular in Japan. It has the same problem as crypto in that it's taxed as miscellaneous income, and also the tax reporting is quite onerous. And also there's almost no chance you're going to do well speculating on currency movements. So if you're interested, please keep your investments to a minimal amount, but I would just avoid it altogether. The third thing I would avoid in Japan is picking stocks. So picking stocks is interesting, it can be fun, you can sometimes get lucky, but generally speaking, you're not going to outperform an index over the long term. The vast majority of stock market gains come from just a handful of companies, and your chances of picking those companies that are going to outperform for the long term are minimal. Even professional investors who have huge resources, focus exclusively on investing, still have trouble competing with the index. And so for the normal average person, it's not even worth trying. If you enjoy stock picking, if you like kind of thinking about stocks and choosing stock, and maybe there's an element of excitement and fun for you, just do it with a little bit of your portfolio. Don't put the vast majority of your money into individual stocks. Fourth thing I would not bother investing in is gold. Gold, precious metals, commodities. Like Warren Buffett says, these are unproductive things. They don't actually create anything. They're not growing. They're not compounding over time. You're just speculating on the price. And I think there's probably better things to invest in. And the fifth thing I would not bother investing in Japan is options. So options are financial instruments that let you use leverage to potentially increase your returns, but also increase your losses. And they're very dangerous if you don't understand them. And if you're watching this video, you probably don't have the understanding to do options. I certainly don't. So I would also avoid those as well. So what do you think? Do you disagree with any of my choices? Anything to add? Please leave us a comment. I always enjoy reading those, and I'll see you in the next video.